So I've interviewed you a few times, but it's always been festival related, and we've never kind of gone deep diving with each other in that, in the interview sense.
Yeah,
So I'm quite excited about this.
yeah, it's just great. I haven't done an interview for a while. I mean, because there's not really much sort of in that way. I mean, every now and then you sort of, I mean, even in Melbourne, it's hard to run into musicians like at a gig because there's no gigs, and only recently started doing this again. It's like that's why I'm scrambling with laptops. Just like I can't even log into my laptop because I haven't had a reason to use it. I'm like on the phone, so it's crazy. But no, this is really fun. Normally it's at a festivals, lots of noise, and it's always in like a hay shed out of that thing. What's that festival
Rambling
you have?
Man, I know.
Yeah, Rambling
Or
Man.
yeah, that has been the last few times. I've done you a few times at Download as well when
Yeah,
I had the bus.
that's right, with the
No,
bus. Yeah.
yeah, no, that was nice. I was up on my little platform looking over everyone.
Yeah, that was great. You had it right in the middle of the thing. It was awesome.
Yeah, no, it's cool. So I guess my first question for you, obviously you're sitting there with a guitar. We all know that you play guitar and you sing as well.
I
So
just wanted to be ready because I didn't know. I was like, I better get ready. Got to get a guitar.
no, totally. And also something I've realized since I went on this guitar journey is there's something about just having that guitar in your lap. You just
Mm,
feel more like you're ready.
yeah,
It gives you that confidence, doesn't it?
it does. Yeah. Even like in this whole pandemic sense, even though we can't go and play a gig, as soon as you hold your guitar again, it's like an energy thing. It's just, I don't know, it gives you a good vibe.
It's that. And do you know what I've hated the most? Doing these interviews on Zoom, being at home, means I can't wear my leather jacket. And I love wearing my leather
Yeah.
jacket. It's like, it's a staple. Whenever I do my
Yeah.
interview, whatever I'm wearing, I'm like, I just bang on the leather jacket and then I feel like me. And it's like, I
Yeah.
miss that.
Yeah. Well, hey, just put the air conditioning on really cold. And then that way you've got a reason, it's sort of put the jacket on. It's like it's cold in here.
It's true. It's true. It's very
Yeah.
true. It just feels weird sitting inside wearing the leather. But anyway, so,
Yeah.
so why guitar for you? What drew you to it?
Well, when I was a kid, this is good because we're, English in Australia, Commonwealth, we have cricket. And I used to get the cricket bat and pretend it was a guitar. And then at some point I was like, because Dad always had an acoustic, because Dad always played. So there was always around. So I guess at one point I was like, just put the cricket back down and actually had a go at the thing with the strings on it. But it was like Elvis, Angus, Hendrix, and because I like the way Elvis would do that little dance and stuff with his, like the way he'd move around and he'd play it, and he sort of would hang it there. He'd hardly even play the thing, but it was kind of like I used to pretend I was Elvis in the backyard with the cricket bat. So it was like that was the vibe when I was 6. But then it was sort of like, I don't know, it was like when I first hit my first like A chord, it was like I used to just sit there because I couldn't play it. I would just work out, the chords before I could, get a few lessons. But I would just play that chord and look at the strings. And in the fluorescent light, they would they vibrate kind of funny. If you ever do it under fluorescent light and look at the strings, they vibrate in a certain way. And I just used to get like, it was like hypnotized. It was like, that ball thing.
Yeah.
I used to look at the strings like that over and over again before I could like do something else with it. And then eventually I'd like learn some riffs, and then it just sort of went from there. And I've always been obsessed with it, where it's like, even if I'm not playing it, like as soon as I pick it up again, I'm like, it's all about that. Like even the phone, if it rings, I don't hear it. It's just, I don't know. It's a weird thing. It's like, what's a Metallica song, Moth into the Flame? It's kind of that.
It is, and it's kind of, it's like meditation as well, isn't it? When you get on a little riff and you just keep going and going and you keep repeating it and you keep repeating it and you're like, oh my God, how long have I been sitting here doing this?
Yeah, time disappears. It really
Yeah.
does. And even when you learn, I've been learning. I've actually just started learning some new riffs again from other. Like I've gone back to being a kid in a way that I was like learning riffs from other bands. I haven't done it in forever. So I started learning what's it called, Panama, and I'm just learning that out and trying to figure it out. And man, I had no idea how complicated Eddie Van Halen was. It still is. And I'm getting around it, getting my fingers around it. And I'm like, wow, this is so hard. I'm like, it feels good to be challenged again, as opposed to playing the same 3 chords I've only ever played, and the same scale. But so I'm watching videos on dudes that are teaching it, you know, online, and people that are going their way, they play it. I'm going, oh, okay, that's what he's doing there. And then I saw him listen, figure it out. And I was just thinking, like, when I was a kid, we had to sit around with tablature books, you know, and there was no YouTube videos. Like, I think we're going to see a boom in like the world's greatest guitarists that sit at home and watch YouTube videos of dudes figuring it out and go, man, I can play 1 million songs. Yeah.
Me, that's how I'm learning that way. And
Yeah.
after I've been chatting obviously to all you guys that learned, you know, when you were like, you know, 9, 10, 11 back in the 80s and 90s and stuff. You didn't have YouTube. So hat off to you guys. You learned the hard way. You had to really want it.
Yeah, you had to use your ear. And like, if you were sitting there with a vinyl, like it was the record player, you had to keep like stopping the vinyl, moving the needle back. And it was this thing. And you also had to tune your guitar to the vinyl if the thing wasn't perfectly, because the tuning changes. It was crazy. So you had to sort of really use your ear for it. But one trick I've found is, say, like if you're learning a riff, like this is because I've just done this the last few days, is that whilst you might not be getting it tonight, in the morning when you wake up, for some reason it's easier. It's like your brain processes it or something, or maybe everyone's different, but I find the next day the riff is easier to play when you're learning it.
Well, that's interesting. Like you get frustrated with it, step away from it, and then you come back the next day mastering it. I like that. Yeah.
It's so hard not to break your guitar. Like when you get, I want to play this thing, because you just want to get to that bit where you're rocking out. You're like, shit, I've got to fucking sit here. I hate it. You know, I'm the same.
I like that with Nevermind. I just couldn't do it. In the end, I was like, oh, fuck this. I'm going to go back to the blues.
Yeah. The blues is great. Have you ever, like, say, like one thing that's really fun is cranking up your TV and getting some speakers going, plugging your guitar in the amp or something in the room, getting a sound, like, say, for example, Iron Maiden live at Donington. And if you've learnt your Iron Maiden riff and playing it with the band when they play it live and rocking out in your lounge room, that is one of the funnest things to do. It's like reliving gigs again. Obviously, the neighbours might get upset, but fuck them, you know, like it's like you're at Donington. And for that moment, for you learning that riff, it's like, I'm playing with Bruce and the boys. This is great. And you sort of get that inspiration. I used to do that when I was a kid in where I used to learn, which is what we call the cabin. But I used to have AC/DC live at Donington cranked up to the max. And I would just, when I learned something, I'd pretend I was, you know, playing it. And it was like exhilarating. It's like a gig.
That's a great idea. Yeah, because I haven't got into that yet, where I sort of started playing along to records and stuff like that. I'm not quite there. But maybe that's a good idea, just to sort of chuck me in, feel like I've joined a band.
Yeah, you jump in the deep end, you go, oh, shit. And if you psych yourself up and really believe it, and you're like, shit, I'm going on stage. Like, this is it. I've got to nail it. And you can't fuck it up, you know. If you go out there, you know, Bruce will throw the microphone at your head. You know, oh, shit, I fucked up the thing. It's just, I don't know, you've got to, it's just fun doing that. And then because I mean no one says I'm going to learn guitar to go through this because I don't enjoy it. You know, you want to, it's like, you know what I mean? It's
No, I was saying that the other day to someone, actually. I was thinking, I was like, you know I'm rubbish, but I might actually try and join a band, because I was thinking, you know, you think about these punk guys, some of them hadn't ever played a guitar and they joined a band. And it's just like, it doesn't matter if you can only play 2 chords. Who cares? You know? Who
cares? Just attitude and go for it, you know? And some of those punk bands, it's like they tuned their guitar up once in their life and then just left it that way.
It is. Yeah. Can you remember the first riff you learned?
The first riff, I mean, it was the same as everyone. It was bloody I fucked it up. Hang on. I learned that one. Smoke on the Water.
Smoke on the Water. That is funny, isn't it? That is what everyone learns. I love it.
It's the quintessential. Have you learned that one?
I have, yeah. Although I've forgotten it. I learned
Yeah.
it. Someone taught it to me on Life in Six Strings, and
Okay.
then I've forgotten it. But I think they showed it to me in a different area. It was a bit lower, bit lower. I
Oh,
want to say lower, but I mean higher.
yeah. Well, I mean, I was just on the open D and G string, so I'm just
Yeah.
going. I'm adding in an AC/DC G there, that one. But yeah.
Do you tune your guitar up slightly?
Um,
I was listening to something the other day, and they were talking about the way you tune your guitar, and they said you slightly you tune it up a step or something. Is that on everything, or is
oh,
that just on a few songs?
oh no, yeah. So like, Live It Up, Running Wild, and Girls in Black, they both have the guitar in. It's in F, so the guitar is kind of tuned up.
Yeah.
Well, it is. It's tuned up like. I don't really talk music that well, but I can talk guitar, so I tune up a fret. But if you have a capo, you could do it. You just
Okay.
like, yeah. But
Yeah.
normally it's like 440 or 432, which is like E flat, where we tune them down to 432. Because I don't know if you got into the sort of Earth's resonance thing. Like there's a, if you
No.
like, yeah, back in the 60s. Oh, wait, it was like original classic, like classical music before World War II or something. They used to tune down to what will tune up to 432. And now there's this thing called concert pitch, which was what they tuned 440 as. But 432 was the original tuning. And there's something that happens down there. It's very close to E flat, just a little bit above. And E flat is like there. So it's got a heavier sound. Sabbath is down there a bit, like Black Sabbath and things like that. That, you know, that
Yeah.
heavier sort of sound, like yeah. But we tune all over
I've
the place.
never heard of that before. That's interesting. It's amazing, isn't it? Because maybe that's why sometimes I play stuff and I think, oh, it doesn't really sound right, but it's all to do with the tuning as well, isn't it? I guess.
Yeah. And a lot of things like records from the 60s, 70s, and that, if you're tuning to them, like if you're on 440 and you're trying to play Highway to Hell, like that's in a different, that's down a bit. I think that's probably around the 432. The
Yeah.
other thing they used to do back then was slow tape machines down to get it to sound heavier.
Oh.
So, and that would change the pitch of it. So one thing to work out is just like the key of the song. If you know it's in A, then you just got to find when they're playing an A and hit your A string, tune to that, stop the music, and then tune your guitar to the A string that you've tuned to. That's one way of doing it without a tuner.
See, because you didn't do theory then. You know, you can't
No, I
music
failed
and
it. I had to take it at school because I studied music at school, and I fucking failed the whole thing because I was no good at it. I was too busy like wanting to do things by ear and not like read it. You know, it was with the funny sort of lines and the dots everywhere and everything. I
yeah.
sort of can look at it, but it just takes too long. I just want to fucking rock, you know, like.
No, I hear you for sure. I think it does sort of take the fun out of it a little bit. But it's
Yeah.
funny though that you know what you're talking about.
Well, I think I do. I mean, I probably sound like I do, but
You
I sort
do.
of just. Well, I mean, it's like whenever I learn something from someone, I try and remember it. You know, like on the last record we did with Dave Cobb, he taught us about the whole slowing the tape machine thing down. He goes, "Here, have a go with this button, this big knob thing. We just turn it and it slows the whole track down, and like all the guitars get heavier, and then you sort of decide where it sounds best and go, that's the spot, and you go, that's the sound, and you go, well, fuck. I mean, to learn it in future, I'm gonna have to tune to this weird made up tuning, but like it sounds best there, and yeah, that's the thing with tape. You know, it changes everything. But yeah, but see, that's something I learned recently, and I'm like, oh, all right, we'll do that next time. That's cool.
So that was probably was it a bit of a defining moment for you guys as a band then, working with Dave Cobb?
Yeah, definitely. When we got to the studio, like he had like the drum kit and everything was already there, the amps, everything was there, everything was all set up, and he goes, he goes, I've set it up exactly the way Led Zeppelin did Led Zeppelin 2. What do you reckon? And we played through it for a bit. We're like, this is amazing. You know, it's so live. It was like there was bleed everywhere. So half the album was done that way. And then the next half of the album, we put the drums in a smaller room to get a bit more, well, separation from the instruments. We still played live, but Ryan had to like look at us through a window but Stretty was still playing bass in there with him. He was all, you know, up against the wall, just rocking out like this, you know, and Harry and I were outside the windows, and we're like looking in and rocking like this, you know, but all live. And it was just kind of this, the way Cobb would do things was like really quick, really fast. Like, it's hot now, let's get it, you know, this is it. Stop, you know, let's just get it now. And we're like, usually we used to sort of sit around and go, oh, let's get that perfect, you know. It's like, no, fuck all that, let's just go for it. Let's get the attitude, you know, don't worry about it. You'll play like you mean it when we're going. And it's funny when they say tape rolling, you're standing in bloody RCA studios, like Elvis, you know, Dolly Parton, Johnny Cash, everyone's recorded there. You just go, right, game on. And when you stuff up, you really feel bad about it. So you're like, shit, you know. But sometimes there's mistakes on this record and they actually work. Some don't, but yeah.
I like that though, because I feel like for you guys as a band and how you are when you play live and everything, recording like that probably works perfectly for you, because you were such an incredible band live. You kind of want to try and capture that on a record, don't you?
Yeah, you want to capture that, and that's the hardest thing, you know. And I think the reason why I think people might have a hard time with it is because they might get a little bit too clinical, whereas it's a bit too Pro Toolsy, a bit too sort of sterile. You've got to let the bleed. You got to let the mistakes through. Like Cobb would show us things. He'd show us who was he showing us? Was someone like Aretha Franklin or someone like that. He would show Sammy Davis Jr. He would show these old recordings and see where the singer is there. Technically, he'd say technically they're sharp there, but it's attitude. And we were like, oh yeah, that's why that sounds so good. I never even thought they were singing sharp. It's just why it sounds so intense. And like little things like that. And you can't get that if someone's out there auto-tuning everything and, you know, doing all that sort of stuff. So I think that's how you sort of get energy on tape. But he's a master at it, Cobb. He's another thing entirely. Like, he's a master, true master.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember, you know, years ago, here like bands that I liked would be like, oh, I'm producing with this guy in Nashville, Dave Cobb, and I'd be like, oh, who's he? And then you kind of look into him a bit, and then all of a sudden it's like another band working with Dave Cobb, another one, and then you're like, this guy's on fire. He's clearly doing a good job. I think it was Rival Sons that I first heard who he was, and because they always work with him. And so he's been doing a lot. He's got the Midas touch.
He absolutely does, and he's always busy, always doing something. You know, like when we were leaving, they were setting up for Barry Gibb to come in. It was just like, and during when we were there, Keith Urban was down there doing a song for the CMT Awards. Like, they were getting the final sort of mix on this thing, you know, and like just like there was always coming and goings, like crazy sort of stuff like that. And then like he takes you over to the old RCA building, and there's like Johnny Cash, Elvis, Dolly Parton, and like he would even bring out the mics they used. He'd say, oh, by the way, guys, you see the mic stands around your drum kit, and then you show you the photo of the time that the Rolling Stones came in. There's Keith and Mick sitting there with a couple of acoustics doing a little thing because the label says, you know, we need another single, and goes, that's the mic stands that were, you know, they're doing that. And, you know, like it's the history there. He's like, that's the other thing. He's so proud of it, and they were going to knock it down, but it was him that stopped that in its tracks and said, no, we got it, Nashville. We got to keep this building. We've got to keep this heritage. And yeah, he's a true music man.
Yeah, thank God for that. Oh my God, that's great. I never knew that. That's cool. And so what's happening next for you then? Are you making another album, or I'm guessing you might be making it in Australia this time rather than Nashville, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, I still want to go to Nashville and do it there again. I mean, because Nashville was so much fun and everything, but you know, I mean, who knows what's going to happen next? Like it's sort of at the moment, all touring's been pushed to, it looks like we're going to be 2022. We're all just waiting on to see how that goes. But, you know, so at the moment, well, yeah, because we kind of were in the middle of doing it. We were in the middle of touring a record. So the whole plan at the moment is write, you know, write in Australia, get a record up and running, you know, or at least on your fingers and in your vocals and your band. So get that happening. So then when it's time to hit the record button, we should be hot on with the record in our hands, you know, to record it. Because we'll go back out to it and then whack a record down and then go back out again. I'd say that'd be the plan.
Okay. Yeah, it's good to have an album in your pocket so you're ready to go and record it when you can, kind of thing. No, sure.
Yeah, except the weirdest thing is, even if you write 10, 20 songs and then you get to the studio, you come up with another 5 or 10 because you're so inspired of where you are. So it's like it's really hard to do that. But we've had gigs going in Australia, like just coming back now. We haven't been playing, but we other shows have been going on, and we're looking at doing that. So that'll be great. But we've been going to shows. I saw crowd surfing a few weeks ago here in Melbourne. A New Zealand band, they're called She Had. They've been around for a long time, and they had crowd surf right up, you know, and it was just like high fives, you know. It was so good. There was just because the capacity of the pub. This is my remote control for the aircon. So the pub floor plan is like this. Okay, so it's a long pub, and the stage is up here. So they would sell 50% of the room, but then all the crowd runs up to the front. There's nothing down the back. So you sort of bring the back curtain up and it still looks like a full gig. So you're like, you can crowd surf because you can't obviously crowd surf with 2.5 meters and you
end up on the floor. Yeah,
broken nose, you know, like, so yeah, we're starting to see those things. And I was sending it to some of our road crew overseas, and they were like, wow, that's just, seeing crowd surfing again is like brings tears to the eyes, you know. Oh my God, it's coming back. It's coming back.
It does, doesn't it? I know. I was thinking that. I was like, God almighty, can you imagine our first gig that I go to? I think I am going to cry.
Yeah.
It's going to be a moment.
There's a famous Australian singer, Australia's greatest rock and roll singer, Jimmy Barnes, who's been
I knew you
touring.
were going to say that.
Yeah. So I had a little moment where my eyes were I got a little bit of those misty eyes when I was at a pub, and it was the day before the show. It was midnight. I saw that they put a post up, how excited they were to play for the first time again at the Red Hot Summer Tour. It was in Tasmania, which is we got to fly over some ocean to get there. And I just went, I was pretty pissed at the pub, you know. I was like, oh, you know, but managed to get on the Qantas app and just book flights and went, I'm doing it. I don't even care if I can't get into the States, if I don't get tickets to the gig. And then it worked out. I knew a good mate of mine was working for him, and he sorted me out. And I just went there. I was side stage, and Jimmy comes out and fucking whacks the crowd with all of his power. You know, he's so good at it, at lifting people up. And I had that misty eyes. I was like, man, it's coming back. And I just saw a crowd just, because they were all told to sit down and not rock, you know, be safe. And they just went, break the law, you know, and it was just like, yes. And, you know, it was great. He got me up on stage to sing Good Times on stage up there and stuff. I was like, I didn't even know how to sing. I was like, what do I do? I haven't done it in a year.
That is the thing as well. It's like I'm doing a job with a proper crew in a few weeks. And I'll tell you what, I'm really nervous. I'm really nervous about being in front of a proper camera again and having to deliver like, you know.
But how good are the nerves? It's like energy, you know. It's like a Red Bull or something.
Yeah, no, for sure. So you mentioned Panama and you mentioned Eddie Van Halen. Was he never much of an influence on you then as a kid?
Well, he was. I just couldn't work out what he was doing, so I didn't get to learn much. I would make my own way up around it, and I just, you know, and things like that. But no, major influence, because I was in awe of what he would do. Like I would try and learn tapping and things like that. I just didn't know how to do it. There was no way to learn it. No one could teach it, and I could sort of hear it and go, oh, I don't know what he's doing there. I just would listen to it and go, wow, that guy's amazing. So I thought, like in lockdown, I need to get probably better at a few things. And I'm just wanting to do it because I'm like, how does he do that? You know, it's fun to make those sounds. And soon as you start making those sounds, you start coming up with different riffs and different things yourself. And it's, you know, I mean, if you think about where guitar got, you know, pushed to like the outer reaches of the universe, he's the guy that carried it furthest. You know, like it was like Hendrix, whoa, major moment. Van Halen, major moment, you know. Like, so it's just, yeah, fun to do that. But no, I'm a diehard Van Halen fan.
So do you not normally do much tapping when you play then, or anything like that?
No, I've never been the tapper guy. I've always had a pick, or I'm always running around the stage. Like my whole style of playing is based around not looking at the guitar and just running or jumping or doing something without actually stopping, you know, doing the thing. Yeah.
So what would you say are you more kind of a blues guy, would you say, or like you're kind of like
I'd say more around the blues, more the blues sort of stuff. Like I guess, you know, basically when it comes to lead stuff, just the pentatonic and the other notes that I make up in between.
Yeah.
Yeah, and things like that. Like I love listening to BB King. He always has that one note, the BB King note. He holds that note all the time, and like I like how the blues do the, you know, that sort of it's just those bends and that sort of where they like all of that sort of stuff. Like Aussie rock is very steeped in the blues because it's so attitudey when they really, you know, do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, you don't have to say much, do you? It's like an economy of notes, and then it's just about really making those notes that you play sound incredible.
Yeah.
So one thing I notice about your playing is that you kind of combine like the rhythm and the lead. How important is your right hand to your playing?
Oh, very much so. Like one of the first things I learned as a kid was, you know, when I was sitting there, when I was looking at those A chords and watching them ring, I would learn, you know, the rhythm first. And there's AC/DC Live at Donington where he sits where it's Malcolm, and I would just cut one side of the PA off, and then only have Malcolm in the middle of their prop. Just he keeps doing that over and over again. Normally I'd clean the sound up a bit, but to do that, but I would just sit there playing that over and over again until you get like your finger. You know, I always get my skin coming off on my finger doing that. But then, you know, that's what I learned first, was to sit there just doing that over and over again. Like mum would be calling out saying, "Joel, your dinner's ready." And I've been out there playing for 8 hours, that same thing, just going. And I get it louder and louder, then I bring it down quiet. Louder. And get it quieter and quieter, louder and louder and quieter and quieter, and learn that kind of dynamic. And with
so what are you doing? So how are you doing that? What strings are you hitting?
It's just it's just these three here.
Are you barring them?
What's that?
Are you barring them?
Oh no, so there's like so the A's open.
Yeah.
And the D is on the second fret, and then I guess I'm barring them just with that part of my finger.
Yeah.
There. It's like a power chord that's open.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I mean, some people play power chords like that or like that.
Yeah.
But it's like an open. And then going, those two are open.
Yeah.
I just used to watch his hand and then sit there, because that's something I could work out, because I was like, it's just that focusing on that one thing. Whereas you got Eddie Van Halen doing the, you know, that sort of stuff. I was like, wow, I don't know. Yeah, I was like, whoa. I just stuck with it, doing that. And then I'd see Angus going, you know, stuff like that. It's all in the pentatonic scale. It was like I could focus on that stuff. And that, also, that's the thing that excited me. And then I heard it in the Angels, an Aussie band, and then I heard it in Rose Tattoo, And then I heard it like way back in a funny name for a band, Lobby Lloyd and his Coloured Balls, and Billy Thorpe and the Aztecs. Yeah.
Dobby Lloyd, are they an Australian band?
Yeah, they were. Yeah, they were a long time ago. They were one of the ones with Billy Thorpe, who pioneered the loud Aussie pub rocks, and before that, it was the easy beats. So, and we also, it was funny. There was a guy called J.O.K. in Australia, Johnny O'Keefe. He was the first rocker in Australia. I think he had Twist and Shout, or that was his big single, and things like that. And but Aussie rock came from blending English rock and roll and American blues, and their rock and roll. So we sort of would blend things like, I guess, the Beatles and the Stones and Led Zeppelin, and then mix that with ZZ Top and Elvis and who else, like Muddy Waters and things like that. And you put all that together, and that's kind of Aussie rock. And that's why a lot of Aussie rock is the blues scale. We don't really Mixolydian things and funny words like that. We don't really get around in those sort of fields. But yeah. And Chuck Berry's another one.
That's what I just love, the evolution of music and how, where you are geographically, and how somehow you hear this music from somewhere else because of where you are geographically, and then you get this incredible, sound that comes out of it, like Aussie pub rock, like you say. And I guess what was it like growing up as a kid in Australia, being in a band and playing? Because for me, I feel like you must have got to really, hone your skill by just playing, because you've got so many pubs and you can go out and do that.
Well, it's funny. When we grew up, a lot of the pubs were starting to close down. And
oh no!
Yeah, I know. It's sort of, we're seeing it sort of throughout the world, but it was like they put poker machines in, so they'd get rid of the stage and then put poker machines in. And there was a pub down the road from where we lived. It was called the Lady Bay Hotel. And just when I turned 18, literally, they knocked the whole thing down. It was a big thing because asbestos bloody blew all over the road and all this sort of stuff. Not in a house, but, it sort of went all over the beach. It was like, guys, what are you doing? This is fucking asbestos. But at the Lady Bay, Midnight Oil, you've heard of them. Yeah. In Excess, you've heard of them. Obviously, there's the Angels. I don't know if AC/DC played there, because I don't know if it was there then, but every big Australian Aussie rock act or rock and roll act played at this pub. It had a big room in it. And so when we saw that, it was like, that we came up with, I'll stand up for rock and roll thing on the first record. But we, so we had to get out of our hometown to play. And there was, so we, in the station wagon and the van on the road, and we were playing all these little places. And I really missed doing that. Like you go in there, and then like they've got the chicken and the steak special thing on the board. It's like, and you're there with your Marshall amps, and there's people with meal tickets going up, and you come out going, and they're like, I'm trying to get me fucking food, like, like, and then you're playing covers, you're playing your own songs, they're like, they request things like, do you should be all night long, or, Enter Sandman and stuff like that, and you go, we don't know those ones, but we're going to play this one. And so it was a hard crowd, because they're not even there to see a band. They're there to get their meal, and you got to somehow entertain them with big ballsy rock and roll. And but it's in that thing that so you're sort of up against it. You just go, all right, well, nothing to lose then. Like, let's just go all out, and play. So when we came to England for the first time, it was the attitude we had. We might have been only playing for 20 people in Australia, out in the middle of like places like Wonthaggi and funny named places. But we got to England and like whack, and play. And so it's it's fun to do that. And who knows, we might have to be out there doing it again if this thing keeps going.
Oh my God, you go back to, what is it, Wonthaggi?
Yeah, Wonthaggi.
What a name. Yeah, I mean, but that's great training ground, isn't it, for you to just get out there and, like you say, play to people that don't really want to see you, Yeah. It toughens you up.
Yeah, definitely. And like, it's weird because I don't know, it's a different kind of nerves too. It's more like, let's show them, instead of like everyone, like someone's there to see a band, like, oh, don't mess up. Don't you feel like, oh,
Yeah.
do everything good, rock out the best, make sure they all have a good time and give it to them. And you're still anxious, but it's like, when you like that, it's like they already hate you. We're already not wanted, and it's like, let's go and give it to them with everything. It's fun.
That.
Yeah,
That's fun. That is fun for sure. And
yeah.
especially like you say, they're up there I just want my chicken and chips. For freaking hell, shut up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well,
Oh
like
my
we would
God.
have the big marshals and that going for sound check or something. They go, listen, if you're gonna make a big fucking sound out of that thing, you better make something I fucking like. And it'd be like a bikie or something, you're like, oh geez, I hope he likes this. And then like you gotta get up, because he's like sitting there with his mates and that, it's just you, the bar staff, and like someone like that's got like 4 teeth in their head with a lot of tattoos going, you better not play something I don't like, or you better make me feel good. You're like, shit, we're only fucking 18 years old, we're kids,
Yeah. Give us a break.
Yeah.
So let's talk guitars. I can see that's a Gibson SG, is it?
That's an SG.
Of course.
It's a 1970, and I've had it for a while. It's actually got the same strings on it that we did Bone Shaker with. So they've been on it for a couple of years now. I get a bit weird with things like that, where I just keep. I like old strings, like the way they sound, but they tend to. Yeah, they tend to break quicker, but yeah, that's one. And in front here, I've got the Explorer.
Nice.
There he is. That's the one I've had forever. It still comes on the road, but I just thought I'd get these guys out. I don't know I think I've had this one longer, or that one. I can't remember.
So you don't seem to, when I've been looking around, you don't seem to have that many guitars. Like you stick to it's mainly those two. And I think you've got a Gretsch as well, haven't you, that you play?
Yeah, there's Gretches. When we go out on the road, I've got this guitar, but then I've got another one that looks like it. And then there's another one that looks like it. So there's a few other Explorers out there, Gibson Explorers. But I don't know, like I like these ones that are lightweight. Like I like lightweight guitars. Some of these can be really heavy, and I just find the thinner the paint and the lighter the weight. There we go. The better.
That's a song there in itself.
Yeah, they resonate better.
So do you customize them as well? Do you make them lighter and stuff?
Yeah, well, this one we didn't have to customize the weight, but you can't really see it. But that volume knob on there, that's got a beer like knob on it. So from a little finger, I can go like that without having to do this thing. And sometimes when you got beer and water and stuff flying everywhere on stage, your little finger can grip the beer knob like you would open a beer and volume up and down. So you can just say, or, like if you're doing a bit of rhythm or something in the verses, you can back it off to about 7 or 8, then hit the solo, give it a little kick, and then, things like that. But pickups are always changing because, we just switch them out if they get too beer logged or something like that. But I should have got the other guitar. There's one that Adam, our stage manager, we were at a festival and I didn't have a guitar that I needed or something. I didn't have this one, and we were going to go climbing, and I needed a lightweight guitar. So one of the other guitars was too heavy, so we just said, look, let's just get the sander, get the router, and he just do it at the back of the festival. And you go like this out the front of the festival. There was a band on stage rocking like this, and if you walked around side onto the stage, then there's sawdust flying everywhere, cutting up this guitar. So and stuff like that. So that's fully been routed out, and one of them's been we chambered the thing, but I don't know. I've never been able to keep something the way it was. This guitar is probably one of the only ones that I haven't messed with. It just sounds great, so I just leave it.
And of course, that's Angus classic as well, isn't it?
It sure is. And they're really, it is, and they're fun couch guitars too, because they just sort of sit back on, you sit there watching Netflix or whatever you're doing in your pandemic, and you can just like rock out on the couch and learn things and stuff like that. But Yeah, I've always loved SGs and Explorers.
But it's funny because they're light as well, aren't they? The SGs. That's what I find about them. They're just.
Yeah.
I was surprised actually at how light they are, and they just fit nice.
They do. They absolutely do. And there's so many different kinds of them. There's the junior, the special, the standard, then there was the early Les Paul ones. But yeah, I love them. They're great.
So only you would have a freaking beer top on your guitar. Like, how did that come about? Who is that something that you've done since you were a kid?
Yeah, well, no, I think it came about because once we started touring and we started doing the beer stuff on stage and smashing on my head or wherever, our hands would get so wet. So we also we've been scoring the pickups. So we do a crisscross with a Stanley knife to give them grip so they don't fall out of your fingers, because our hands just get covered in beer and sweat and water. So I would find that when I wanted to grab the knob on the Explorer, my fingers would slip right off it and be like, shit, and I couldn't. And sometimes I'd accidentally turn the guitar off or, wind the volume down to 0 and then I'd be like, oh, fuck, I've got to get the volume back on, and then do that. So we're like, shit, we need to do something with a bit of grip. And it was one of those quick decisions, like, well, beer top, yes, that works. Yep. So we glued it on. And that was, from that day, it was just a quick glue on at a gig. Then it stuck. And then it was like, let's do that to all the guitars. It works. And the other thing we do is, I mean, you can't really see that, but that is normally the rhythm treble switch for the pickups, for the neck, and then the bridge. They're all disconnected. I mean, that's actually snapped off, that one. But so we disconnect. These pickups don't work. We only use the bridge. And
really?
And there was normally a tone knob there, and we just take that out, and we just only have volume. So it's literally volume, and that's it. And that is a switch to cut the guitar and then turn it on. So it goes when you press it, and that's it. So it's really volume and a cutoff switch.
How come you only use one pickup?
Well, I don't like the sound of the neck pickup. I've never, ever liked it. It just sounds too sort of like, I don't know, it's got a weird sound. To me, it tastes like, it tastes like a craft beer. I just want to drink the good old bloody, what's the ones you got over there? Carling? Is Carling a beer?
Yeah.
Yeah, just like a simple, just a working man's beer, and I find the neck pickup a bit too fruity.
I've never heard it described like that before. Yeah. I love that. It's a bit fruity.
Yeah. It's a bit, the neck pickup's a bit fruity. I just want to go straight to the point, hit the bright pickup that takes your head off, and just get to the rock and roll part.
Do you do that on all your guitars? Is that the same on the SG as well?
No, well, I don't really use this live. So because the reason why we did it was because I kept bumping it into the neck position. So that's why it's taken off. Actually, no, this one is off. Yeah, this one is actually off. Yeah, if I go, yeah, it is.
Okay.
So this one's actually like that. I didn't even know.
There we go.
There we go.
Your guitar tech has done you proud.
He has, yes.
So, what's the beer top? What beer do you use, or do you just mix it up?
Oh, well, funny. So there's 3 white Explorers. Yeah. In Australia, we've got 3 main beers from, well, there's 4. There's 3 main beers from CUB, Carlton United Breweries. This is VB. That actually makes it over to England. You can get VB. Used to be able to get it at the Crowbar. Probably still can. VB. So this was VB Explorer. And then there's Carlton Draft. That's another beer. Yeah. And that's got Carlton Draft knob on it. And then there is Carlton Draft, Melbourne Bitter. That's another that's a beer. Melbourne Bitter, that's another Explorer. So there's another one like this called Melbourne Bitter. And then there's Motorhead. Remember Motorhead beer? Yeah. So there's a Motorhead bottle top on a black Explorer, and that's called Motorhead. And then I think we had another one. I forget what it was, but yeah, sometimes you find a good beer and you go, that's good for this guitar. That's got the vibe. Because the black one's got a real Motorhead sound to it. So I was like, that's why he's Motorhead with his Motorhead, little beer knob.
That's brilliant. I love it. You're gonna have to get yourself a new guitar and then get a Trooper one on it.
Oh wait, that's the other one I've got. It is Trooper.
Is
Yes,
it?
it's on a it's on an SG, because it's like, that's a Trooper. Goes up the truss. He's a Trooper. It's like a rifle, you know.
Oh my God, that's brilliant. And I know that you've got like, when you're playing with the amps and stuff, when you're on stage, you've got like the proper classic stack going on.
Yeah, thanks to Marshall. They you know, they've been going back and making all that classic stuff again. And you can even get it in a little version. There's a 20-watt like SLP sort of thing and a JCM 800. But yeah, on stage, it's all just the big Marshalls all roaring. And there's a real mix of them now. Like, there's going on up there. There's like, we've got ones from the 70s, like there's some JMPs up there, and there's JCM 800s.
Yeah.
And I mean, even throw in the odd Kerry King just for a bit of extra fire up there. You know, it's fun.
That's what it's about, isn't it? Having fun, I think.